Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for the August Fragrance Awards. I was really expecting the month of August here in Central Virginia to be mega hot and mega humid most of the month. And we did have some of those days, but it was actually more sort of on the balmy and temperate side. And there were some days that were downright a little bit on the cooler side and rainy. And so this summer was unusual in terms of the scents that I thought I would reach for versus what I was really interested in wearing, which were more sort of warm and cozy scents that you would wear on a rainy day. I did manage to sneak in a lot of summery types of fragrances. And in fact, in this first category, I have three. The first category is the best for the season. And I usually only put one in these categories at the top of the award show, but there were three that really stood out to me. So I'll try to review them quickly for you. They are very summery fragrances. So if we did have a hot, humid August, they would have been perfect for all of the days. But I did manage to sneak these in on at least some of the hot and humid days that we had. The first is from Veronique Gabai, and this is Sur la Plage, which thank you. All of you shared in a previous video when I talked about this, that Sur la Plage means on the beach, not south of the beach, as I thought. Sur in Spanish means south. So that was where my association came from. Anyway, the fragrance is called On the Beach, and it does give you the feeling of being in a beachy environment. I have to say, for this to be a beachy fragrance, it is one of the most elegant, sophisticated summer scents in this category. So if you're tired of all the suntanny types of fragrances, or the ones that are too literal interpretations of coconut scents and summer drink scents and those kinds of things, maybe give Sur la Plage a try. There are definitely travel spray sizes of this to be had. I will link everything in the description box below where you can go check these out. This fragrance has a little bit of woodiness as the base, but the primary players here are this really soft marine air accord. So if you think about the air coming off of a body of water, yes, it can be a little salty like ocean air, but I really think of air coming off of a lake environment, although this is a beachy fragrance, in that there is this freshness to the marine accord as well. And there are white florals. It's supposed to be like a tuberose accord. And if you know about tuberose, sometimes that note can be made up of several different other white florals. So this is a combination of these sort of soft, salty white florals, salty air smell, and a very sort of faint, delicate woodiness in the base. And I think this smells so lovely in the air. It's one of those fragrances, if you put your nose too close into it, it may smell too literally like ocean air. Anyway, friends, as far as summer scents, this has to be among the most elegant. It is soft wearing, softly projecting. The Veronique Gabai fragrances use very high quality materials and don't use a lot of the more, maybe less expensive kinds of fixatives that can tend to make a fragrance last longer. And so you're not going to get a whole ton of wear out of this, maybe a half a day, a bit more, and it's soft to the skin. But beautiful. Sur la Plage. Next up, friends, is Delina La Rosee. Many people love this. I have heard a few comments of people that are just not interested in this fragrance. It's not for them. But I will say, by and large, this is a crowd-pleasing summer fragrance. It does smell a lot like the bottle looks. It has this sort of translucent, watery nature to it. There are florals in here, rose and peony and some other white florals. There's a lychee note. I believe there's pear and a little bit of citrus. All together, they combine to give you this delicate, floral, slightly citrusy scent that is bright and uplifting. It has this sort of musky base with just a hint of like maybe a woodiness in the base, just a hint, like a little dash, a drop at the most. But generally, if you've tried this, you know that this is a really happy, bright, vibrant, yet soft smelling. It's not soft in performance. In fact, it's actually a little beastly in performance. It lasts a really long time, but it's soft to the nose, if that makes sense. It's not one of those scents that kind of assault you. And it's delicate smelling that way, even though it does have great projection and great longevity. And is very pretty, watery, translucent in all the right ways for summer with just the right amount of muskiness to give it a little bit of depth and base. Delina La Rosee. And then the third you've heard me talk about quite a bit. I wonder if any of you have tried it, and if so, let me know your thoughts. This is Hydra, and I never know how to pronounce the name of the house. Contes de Parfums. I think you say the S on the end of that, and I don't think it's a French house, which is why I'm saying the S. Let me know if you know differently. Anyway, the fragrance for me is characterized mostly by the combination of this minty watermelon deal happening here that is also rather aquatic in nature. This is a fragrance that if you sniff it from the nozzle, you're going to get Febreze vibes and think, ooh, this is going to smell like air freshener. And I'm not going to lie, it does have a little tinge of that. But in the air, for me, this smells very refreshing, aromatic from the minty notes. And I love that sort of sugary wateriness that the watermelon in here lends. Thank you, by the way, to all of you who have tried so hard to help me find the perfect watermelon fragrance. The quest continues, although I'm kind of hanging up my hat on that and letting it go. I'm slowing down on my quest for a watermelon fragrance because I have tried something in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 12 to 15 different watermelon fragrances this summer, including many of the ones that you all have recommended, and none of them have really hit the mark. So I'm going to just leave it alone. But I'm going to say that the watermelon in here is sugary and watery, but it's combined with that minty note. So I can't really call this a watermelon fragrance. There are other sort of fresh, lightly floral notes, I believe, in the background. Maybe some other aromatic touches, but the mint and the watermelon play so nicely together that I would call it that kind of a fresh aquatic fragrance with herbal touches and with a little bit of watermelon nuance. This one lasted on me quite a long time, although it was sort of softly projecting. So keep that in mind, and not one that you want to douse yourself in if this is the kind of fragrance that you want to last maybe half a day because you'd like to switch out your fragrance later. It does have some sticking power throughout the day. Hydra. Moving then into the category of the best everyday fragrance of the month. I have talked about this one before. I don't really hear anyone speaking of this fragrance, and I hear very few people talking about the brand in general. It's from Michael Malul. The fragrance is called 173 Candy, and it is kind of candy-esque. I really enjoy this fragrance. It smells a lot like the bottle looks. And here's what I mean by that. It's got an ombre effect where there's this sort of pinky base to it and these warmer, ambery, golden tones at the top. And the fragrance does smell a little bit candy-esque in that the citruses and the florals in the top and in the middle combine into this sort of, I don't know, it's a soft sweetness to it that, I mean, it doesn't smell like candy that you would want to eat. It's not like an edible fragrance, but it does have this really soft, delicate sweetness to it at the top. I love that in the base, there is amber and vanilla and some soft muskiness that give this sort of very warm, cozy accord and sort of this wraparound feeling like an almost your skin, but better, or a second skin that has a little bit of sweetness to it. I love to wear this on days when I don't want my fragrance to overpower my personality, but that I want to smell sweet and feminine. And when you come in for a hug, you get just sort of that warmth, like a sweet warmth that is feminine in nature. It's got that really soft, delicate, happy floral. The florals, if I had to give them a color, I would say they were pink and white florals. I don't mean like white florals, like white floral accord. I mean the color that comes to mind, although there are white florals in here. Yeah, it almost has this like soft blanket feeling to it, like warmth, sensuality. I adore this fragrance. It's really subtle too. Definitely not one that overpowers a room at all. It's very close to the skin. It's very intimate. For those of you that don't want your fragrance to announce your presence, but you still want to have something on that's nice and that people are going to enjoy when they come close to you. Really quite a lovely fragrance and very underrated. This could have easily been in my hidden gem category because no one talks about it. So the next two categories are special occasion and the sexiest. And I had a hard time divvying out fragrances for these two because the two that I'm going to mention for the categories, you can really interchange them among them. But for the sake of the show, we're going to say that the special occasion fragrance or best one from the month for that type of thing. So imagine an evening event out, a gala, someplace where you are pretty dressy and want your fragrance to impress and find its way in the crowd. You don't want to get lost with something sort of soft and subtle like the 173 Candy. You really want your presence to be known, your fragrance presence. I'm going to go with Fragrance du Bois Sirene, which I fell in love with when I sampled. So I want to tell you a little bit about this fragrance and the surprise that it gives you. You know, when I sampled it, it had this sort of more round, easygoing nature to it. The full bottle is pretty powerful. So I want to share that and that it is a strong, projecting, long-lasting fragrance. It is primarily like a cherry, woody, very sexy, sensual, deep fragrance. So the cherry that's here doesn't smell very sort of like cherry-like in terms of the fruit. It is a very perfumey, almost like a thick syrupy cherry that's in this fragrance. You know, cherry had a moment on YouTube or in Fragcom probably last year or so. There are still a lot of cherry fragrances coming out on the market, but there was like a boom of them in 2023 last year. I love the thickness, the way that the cherry in this fragrance comes across really almost like I said, sticky resinous. And it's got a nice, beautiful, very lovely, sophisticated indicated oud. There's benzoin, which lends this sort of warm, vanillic, musky nature to this. Now, I will say, one of you left a comment that you tried this, and although you enjoyed it, you felt like it was a little bit too powerful. There is a cypriol oil in the fragrance that the person pointed to as maybe being a little bit much for them. So I do want to warn people about that. If you're a person that's put off by strong fragrances, this might be one to test out first to make sure it's going to work with you. But I'm going to tell you what, it just plays so beautifully and warms up so nicely on my skin. It stays very sweet almost and creamy and woody and oudy at the same time in a way that I just find so captivating, lovely for as we get into colder weather, the fall and into the winter here. I did go ahead and wear it in August because I was having one of those days that it was cooler outside and I wanted something to really sort of stick to my bones. And this was a good one for that. And I think it is fantastic. The cherry in here stays in the fragrance through the entirety of it. It comes off almost as this really strong, almost pungent cherry in the beginning, but that begins to evolve in the heart and in the base of the experience of this fragrance and takes its place nicely among the other players. It almost has like, even like this, if bubblegum came in perfume form, and there are bubblegum perfumes, but sometimes those perfumes smell more like bubblegum than perfume. Imagine like an abstract interpretation of a really juicy piece of bubblegum that has cherry infused in it and a woody like tone to it in perfume form. That's kind of what I get from this. And it's so good. It's so good. So anyway, I think this would really play well in a formal environment and in a date night. Then in the category of sexy, this is another really strong, powerful fragrance that I would absolutely suggest getting a decant of to make sure it's going to mesh with you well. It's one of those fragrances, if you're not ready for how strong and interesting and different it is, it's probably going to smell stinky to you or overpower you. But it never fails that when I wear this, my husband is chasing me around. We are too old to have another child. But this fragrance really sometimes puts that to the test. We're an adult crowd here, right? Anyway, it's Tabit from Tiziana Terenzi. Such a difficult fragrance to describe. If you look at the notes, there's coconut, peach, a warm sand accord. I think there's vanilla and musk and a bunch of other interesting stuff going on. The top has bergamot and green notes. It is a very interesting and unique note pyramid. It's funny because when people talk about this fragrance, including myself, no one ever talks about there being this sort of green accord in the fragrance. And I don't want to scare you off for those of you that are not green accord or green fragrance lovers, because truly it doesn't smell green. But there is, if you know that and you smell it, go, oh, I could see sort of off in the distance how some greenness would lend some complexity to this. But I would say by and large, this smells warm. This smells even ambery and musky. There's a candy accord in the fragrance. I can't say I get candy, to be fair, but there is this sort of like, I don't know, this interesting sweetness to it, and not sweet in a gourmand direction, like a perfumey kind of sweet. I do sense something like a creamy coconut, maybe a beachy feeling. Every time I smell this, I describe this differently. So I definitely have to say, get yourself a sample. Check this out. It is a powerhouse of a fragrance. You spray a little bit on in the morning, and even at night, as you go to bed, you'll still be smelling this on yourself. It goes and goes and goes all day. It's a pretty pricey fragrance at retail. I think it's over $400 at retail. And if you want to save some money, you can use one of the discount codes in the description box below. And certainly, I think this ends up being on Joma Shop a lot, in the maybe $250-ish range, worth every single penny if this kind of fragrance appeals to you. Absolutely beautiful. Never, ever fails to get attention. Like I said, from my husband, and I have gotten compliments from other people on this when I wear it out in public. Tabit. In the category of biggest surprise, and it's in this category because I honestly forgot how fantastic this fragrance is. So when I reached for it and I sprayed it on the day that I wore it, I was like, I've been neglecting you and we need to reacquaint ourselves because it is really, really good. This was from Trussardi, and the line of fragrances with these sort of greyhound tops on them, La Vie de Milano. I'm going to mess up this name, but it's for short. Call it Limitless Shopping. Limitless Shopping. Via Della or Deja Spiga. My husband told me how to pronounce this, and I have since forgotten. But the bottle doesn't tell you anything about what this fragrance smells like. I do like the bottle. It's almost like this leathery placard thing on it with this almost like a beigey, creamy color. I love that this has a honey and an apple note as it opens up. It is bright yet feminine and alluring, and it also has this sort of warmth to it. There are florals in the fragrance, and as it settles down, it's tonka bean and heliotrope and musk, which give it this almost like a dense, almost creamy powderiness. I know I say that sometimes in videos and it sounds like a contradiction, but that is what I mean, a creamy powderiness. Or powdery creaminess, maybe is the better way to describe it because it's more creamy than powdery. And it's got this sort of thick sweetness in the base. Again, not gourmand in nature, although the honey gives it a sense of edibleness at the top. The apple that's here for me is a very bright, happy apple, almost like a crisp Granny Smith apple in the opening of this. So as we get into fall season, this is fantastic if you want one of those transitional fragrances that isn't quite into fall territory, but you want some of the vibes of fall, the honey and the apple in here, and the sweet, musky, tonka beanie kind of base to this kind of get the job done. It's happy. It's both fresh and warm at the same time, which I think is an interesting combination of accords in a scent. This is nicely lasting too. It took me through the whole day. I was getting sort of nice wafts off of my shirt. It's gotten deeper and it's gotten sweeter as it has sat in my collection. And I love that for it. And I love that for me. Very unique fragrance. I can't think of very many others in my collection that smell like this. Really lovely. It also has this kind of like a shampoo-y aspect to it, but I would say the apple and the honey and the sweet, musky tonka bean nature of this sort of push forward. Yeah, really, really lovely. So a surprise in the sense that I fell in love with it all over again. In the category of best bottle, and some of you are going to think I have lost my mind because it is a very kitschy bottle. Some might even argue that it's ugly, but it's so ugly that it's cute to me. And that happens sometimes. And it is Daisy Wild from Marc Jacobs with this, yeah, the top is kind of sort of hideous, but it's kitschy and it's also cute and it's novel and it makes me happy to look at this bottle. And I love that the bottle itself looks like a vase with the like stems poking down into it. So I've gone through quite a bit of this since I got it earlier this spring, and I'm loving this. I enjoy this every time I put this on. This also gets compliments in this house from everyone. I can't, tell you that it smells like the notes that I see on the screen. So I'm just going to try to describe this in my own way. I find this to be this very juicy, fruity, floral fragrance that is very, very bright and vibrant and just gives me good feelings. It's very, very joyful. It almost smells like a super duper deep, fruity, juicy fruit kind of note. Juicy fruit as in the gum. I don't see quince listed as a note, but I get that type of sort of juicy, nearly tart sweetness combined together that fruit can give you. It's even a little bit creamy and it's woody in the base. I think it's sandalwood that's the base note here, and vetiver too. I can't say enough good things about this fragrance, and it's one that I almost passed on because of the crazy bottle, but I'm really enjoying this. Best bottle. And in the category of worst bottle, and I mean this in a cheeky way because I actually think that the bottle is kind of cute, but some people think it's super gaudy. So I'm going to sacrifice Nolita for this category from Bond number 9. This is the 1.7 ounce. These can be super pricey. So if you're interested in the Bond fragrances, make sure, and you want a discount, make sure you are shopping the gray sites like Joma Shop and those places, FragranceNet, etc. And in fact, Joma Shop recently had a huge Bond number 9 sale about maybe a few weeks ago. And I believe the full bottle of this was like 150 or less on Joma Shop. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that website and you're signed up for alerts or watch my community channels. Sometimes I'll post alerts on there. This is mostly tangerine and freesia and lilies on a bed of like this sort of really soft, easygoing, very, very subtle musk fragrance. So if you think about freesia being this really clean smelling, nearly metallic white floral, and lilies having this very distinctive smell that is hard for me to describe. It's almost like a crisp floral smell. And then think of tangerine as having a citrus aspect to it. I equate it most closely to orange juice, although orange juice can be sometimes a little bit more bitter and stronger. Tangerine tends to be a little bit sweeter. Anyway, it's such a happy, uplifting fragrance. You would spray this on and be like, well, what's the big deal? It's just a nice, fruity, floral, clean, easygoing day-to-day fragrance. And then you end up getting a ton of compliments because people enjoy this in the air. The crispness of it, the sweetness of it, the easygoing, round, luscious, almost nature of this fragrance, that it ends up being a crowd pleaser. But the bottle is one you have to think is kitschy and cute. Otherwise, it's going to look very ugly to you. I'm going to try to speed this up because I have very many more fragrances to talk about, and I want to make sure to talk about all the beauties that I wore this month, and then some that I think maybe going out the door. In the category of my favorite blind buy is La Belle Paradise Garden, and this was released last year, I believe, or maybe even the year before that, I forget, as La Fleur Terrible, and then re-released with this new name. Listen, this was a big surprise. It smells sort of like the bottle looks. It has this sort of ozonic quality to it and this aquatic, sheer, almost translucent or transparent, translucent wateriness. Translucent, I think, is the word that I'm looking for. I want to mention that this has a nice dose of vanilla in the middle and in the base that make this a feminine fragrance. It softens it up, but it also has this sort of like marine-like quality with a little saltiness without smelling like marine air. It's so hard to describe this fragrance. It was really a nice surprise. There are some florals in there. One of the key notes is a blue lotus note, which I don't even know how to describe that. It's a really intriguing and enchanting fragrance, and one that I was just shocked at how good it was. I was expecting to try this and give it away, and then I was surprised at how beautiful it smelled on me, and I couldn't stop sniffing myself when I wore it. Lasts all day too, which is really, really nice. Feminine, blue and aquatic in nature, yet floral and vanillic at the same time. Really nice juxtaposition of accords in here. And then in the category of not a safe blind buy, this smells so good in the air, but it's one that I think people definitely need to try to make sure that it's for them because they might think that it smells off or weird on them. And this is from Tom Ford. It's Soleil de Feu. And the primary notes in here for me are this sort of cardamom spiciness. There's an amber base, if I'm not mistaken. It's warm and it's resinous, and I believe tuberose is the primary floral. There's definitely sort of a warm, mature floral. Some of you will think this is too mature of a fragrance. Some of you will think it is a little too bizarre. Others might think it's a little too spicy and deep and cloying, but it smells really good on. It sprays on nicely, but the magic is really in the dry down when it meshes with your skin chemistry, warms up, and projects this just beautiful, like ambery, resinous almost, spicy from the cardamom and whatever else gives it the spicy aspects in here while still being feminine from the beautiful deep white floral. This is really, really lovely without getting too heavy. It has presence, it projects, and it stays on you all day. This is an all-day fragrance, but it doesn't become so thick in the air, at least for me, that it's annoying. Husband loved this too on me. He kept telling me that I smelled really good all day long. So this is a nice warm fragrance as we go into the fall and winter months here. And the category of hidden gem is one that I've talked about throughout the entirety of me having this channel for the past almost 4 years. I just don't really hear anyone else ever talking about it, and I adore it so much. When I run out of this, I will definitely be re-upping and hoping that the new bottle has the same formula. It's from Laura Mercier from the Eau Gourmand collection, and it's called Ambre Vanille. There's a different bottle now that's rounder and really a pretty bottle, and I'm hoping it's the same. Anyway, I am making my way through this bottle and can't get enough of this. I love, love, love this fragrance. It smells like it sounds. There's amber and vanilla, and for me, it's almost like a coconut, like a sweet coconut note. I have talked about that this smells like a little coquito, like icy type of dessert. Almost like a coconut, like a frozen coconut custard with a lot of sweetness to it. And it's just a happy fragrance. I feel like there are also florals in this. At least I feel like I remember that reading that in a note pyramid from a long time ago, maybe peach or something of that nature. Apricot, one of those sort of vibrant stone fruits. A little bit of that, but mostly this really warm, beautiful amber and this lovely, deep, almost dessert-like vanilla with touches of, like I said, that coconut, frozen coconut custard type of deal. I just love this so much. I could douse myself in this head to toe. And I'm sort of trying to preserve this fragrance because I'm a little concerned that the new bottle maybe has a different formulation. If you know, let me know. But this has been sitting on my shelf for a while and has matured really nicely. Love this. And then the next category is worth hunting down, although I'm about to play myself because this is actually sitting out on Lucky Scent and it's sitting out on Macy's and all these other places that I didn't know it existed on. And so for the sake of just going on, I'm just going to leave it in this category. It's Fleur Nocturne from Isabey Fragrances. I only have this small travel spray. The big bottle is blue, like a midnight blue in nature like this. And this is one of those fragrances that reminds me of what I enjoyed about old school perfumery, where there were these big, bold florals that were anchored by a beautiful, elegant patchouli note. We've talked about patchouli and the recent hate for patchouli and how people just insist that it always smells like dirt and all of this. There's different types of patchouli, folks. This is a very sort of elegant perfumey patchouli that lends this level of old school sophistication to this. This smells, for me, like all of the beautiful, big, bold perfumes of the 90s that had amber and patchouli in the base of them. The floral notes highlighted for here are jasmine, gardenia, magnolia. There's vanilla in the fragrance. It has some other notes at the top like mandarin and apricot. But what I get is a combination of really elegant, deep florals that I think of as those old school fragrances, nighttime perfumes where ladies came out smelling like their most elegant floral, ambery, deep patchouli selves. This is that, Fleur Nocturne. So I would consider getting a full bottle when I run out of this travel spray at some point in the future, but this is beautiful and worth taking a look at if that description appeals to you. So I'm going on to the bottom 3 fragrances. I won't spend a lot of time except to say that all 3 of these are leaving the house. They will be on Mercari soon if they're not already by the time that this video posts. From Armani Privé Blanc Cogan. Oh, a fragrance that I really wanted to get along with. It reminds me somewhat of a pared back version of White Linen from Estee Lauder, as I've mentioned in previous videos. A soft, aldehydic, easygoing, day-to-day wearing fragrance. Smells soapy. I think there's a little bit of musk and woodiness. I forget what the notes are in here. And I did give this several full days wear and just kept feeling like I wanted to wear something else. Like it just wasn't scratching some itch for me, but I do still think it's a pretty fragrance and worth trying out if you like something aldehydic, but that's easygoing for day to day and subdued. I wanted a little bit more oomph from this fragrance than it was giving. And so for that reason, I would reach for others like that Musk Chamal from the same line that I was mentioning before in other videos. Perfecto when it comes to a sort of soapy, elegant, aldehydic, like special fragrance. There wasn't anything special about this enough for me to want to continue to reach for it. So this is going out the door. If you're interested in it, it will be on Mercari. If you're interested in that kind of fragrance, go check out a sample of it and see what you think. But I'm gonna let this one go. This one I put on the tray in that last video, thinking that I would enjoy wearing it in August. And here's what happened. Every time I picked it up and sniffed it from the nozzle or like sprayed it on a finger or something to see if it's something I would want to wear for the day, my brain kept going, choose something else. Choose something else, Veronica. This is Agent Provocateur Electric, which was a fragrance that I enjoyed when I first got it. And I didn't wear a lot in between then and now. So I think I purchased this back in 2021, wore some then, maybe sporadically wore it here and there, but I didn't find myself reaching for this a whole lot. The primary feature of this fragrance is a fig note that for me comes across like a woody green type of fig. Now, if you've tried Philosophos from Diptyque, it's that same kind of deal. And I don't love Philosophos. I can see why people like it, but it's not the kind of fig that I enjoy in fragrances. I like a more sort of milky fig, even a creamy fig that has some sweet aspects around it. This is a little bit too green, figgy, and woody for my taste. And I just kept thinking that, y'all, I almost sacrificed the bottle, went flying across the room. Woo-hoo-hoo. That would have been a disaster, a filming disaster. Anyway, I just kept thinking I didn't want to spend a whole day smelling like this anymore. So I'm going to let this go. It is about here if anybody's interested. Again, it'll be on Mercari. And then I am very sad about this next fragrance because I recently purchased it. I bought it this spring and it was to sort of round out my Chantecaille floral fragrances that I had. It is Le Wild. I know, gasp. This is one that's really hard to get a hold of. You can't really find it a lot of places. And so it gets sold out quickly. It is a cult favorite among white floral lovers. And I thought I loved it too. Until the day that I wore it in the evening. My son had come home and he was like, what does that smell? And I panicked. I was like, oh my God, please tell me it's not me. It's not me. So, I played that game. What are you smelling? What does it smell like? And he goes, I'm not going to say the person's name, but an elder person in the family who smokes. He said, you smell like so-and-so. And I was like, what? He said, have you been smoking? I don't smoke. So I don't even know where he got the notion from to even ask that question. But the fact that he smelled cigarette ashes on me, he said, you smell like so-and-so after she's been smoking cigarettes. And I thought, oh, no, 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 no. I thought I smelled fantastic. My husband liked this fragrance on me during the day. But then he came home and my son ruined it for me with that cigarette comment. And I was like, you know what? I can't be out here smelling like cigarettes. It has to me like some jasmine tones in it. There are some indolic tones, but it's a combination of different white florals in this fragrance. I want to say it's like everything, magnolia and tuberose and jasmine and who knows what else is in here, but a bunch of white florals. It smells like a bouquet of flowers that are starting to decay a little bit. They have a little bit of that indolic touch, but apparently that was coming across as cigarette to my son. So I'm sadly going to let this one go and stay with my other two Chantecaille florals, which are Frangipani and Petale. This will be on Mercari. The middle category are 3 fragrances, 2 that I would like to be stronger, but are beautiful scents. And the third that is a beautiful scent, but I wish maybe wasn't as strong. So that's interesting. Let's start off with a summer fave, and that is Kayali's. Hold on, because you know they got these super long names. Utopia Vanilla Cocoa 21. I am almost halfway through this fragrance. I think I got this a couple of years ago, so I've been spraying it quite a bit. And I think this is probably one of the most beautiful, magnificent, feminine summer fragrances like of all time. It's coconut. I get coconut in here, and I get vanilla, a really soft, almost like a creamy coconut vanilla combo. And I also get this beautiful, very, very luscious white floral in here that meshes nicely with the other two, the coconut. Get your words together with the vanilla and the coconut, friends. Woo, that's what happens when you get into these long videos. You can't talk anymore. And I just love the way that this smells. And I just wish it lasted even longer. It does last decently. You get, 4 to 6 hours, but it gets soft to the skin. And I want more bass in this. I want it to amp up and project even more because it's so, so beautiful. So I just found myself wanting even more because the fragrance is so good. It's just such a nice combination of the 3 without any of the 3 accords outpowering, outplaying, outmaneuvering, outwitting, like in the game of Survivor, the other accords. Yeah. I want it to be stronger. Beautiful. And then a fragrance that people don't really talk about at all. I think a few folks have talked about this on their channel, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it recently. And I think it's great. I wore this to bed one night. I sprayed my robe down with it, and my robe smelled amazing in the morning. I didn't smell it so much on me. So on clothes it lasts, and on me I get a half a day-ish sort of deal out of this. Scarlet Poppy from Jo Malone. This is so, so pretty. This smells to me like this creamy, rich vanilla infused with almond. And the vanilla is not deep like you get in vanilla extract, where it almost smells like a boozy vanilla. It is a very sort of soft, demure vanilla. It's demure. It's a demure and mindful vanilla. What's going on with that trend lately? Where did that come from? Demure and mindful. Cracks me up. Anyway, almond in the fragrance as well. And I feel like there's something soft and floral, like a very delicate, almost like a yellow floral in the fragrance. And I just love that this is like, for me, bordering on the edge of being a gourmand without heading into that territory. And I love it for that. It's such a great sort of bedtime scent, or for those of you that want something feminine and cozy, a sweater weather type of perfume without a lot of oomph. This is probably one you want to try out. I really, really enjoy this. It's gotten stronger as it has sat on my shelf, but I want it to be even stronger and more projecting because it is such a beautiful, delicate, demure, and mindful fragrance. Then the fragrance of the 3 that I maybe want to calm down a little bit because it can be a little overpowering, and because I spray heavy, sometimes I forget and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of perfume to pull off for the day. And this is from Giardini di Toscana, and it's Bora Bora. This had its moment in the sun last summer. A lot of people talk about this being a coconut heavy fragrance. I do get some creamy coconut, but for me, this is primarily a heady, very heady white floral fragrance. I feel like there's gardenia and maybe even floral touches like plumeria. Yeah, it's creamy, it's white, it's loud. There are coconut touches in the fragrance, and it can be a little bit overpowering. It is still beautiful. I really enjoy this. It also has this like thick powdery aspect. Does anybody else get that in this fragrance as it starts to dry down? So it's one that I have to spray on my bottom half and enjoy as it wafts up instead of spraying sort of up here in my chest and shoulder area where it's going to be like in your nose the whole time. A beautiful fragrance. I have 6 fragrances in the top category because I couldn't narrow it down. So let me try to rush through these for you. The first one we all know, and you either love her or it's not for you, and that is Dolce Garden. I am making my way through this bottle slowly because it is a powerful, strong fragrance. A lot of you pick up mostly coconut in the fragrance, and there is this gorgeous, creamy coconut, but it's also heavily floral to me. Beautiful yellow, almost like thick, luscious florals. Frangipani and ylang-ylang. There is vanilla and sandalwood in the base. I find this very feminine, creamy, and cozy, and super long lasting and very sexy. Another one that gets a lot of attention from my husband when I put it on. Then I want to take a moment to pat myself on the back for actually finishing a fragrance. I was sad when the last spray of this came out and there was nothing else. It is, yes, it's a little bottle, but don't judge. I'm still excited about it. From Dolce & Gabbana, the only one Intense. And I had kicked myself for not getting a bigger bottle when I first bought this a few years ago. I believe that this is now a discontinued scent, if I'm not mistaken, although it's still available on gray market sites and you can get a big bottle for under $100 of this now, which I may very well do because I really enjoy this fragrance. It has this bright green apple type of note at the top. And as you get into the experience, like I'm trying to get something, look at this. Nothing. It's got nothing. It's like kick rocks. Oh, there's a little bit that came out. Oh yeah, come on. It's like a crack fiend. Okay, look, green apple, beautiful coconut and orange blossom in the middle. The warmth of the orange blossom with the creaminess of the coconut and some other florals. I believe there are other white and yellow florals in the fragrance too. This for me is like such a beautiful tropical resort dinner type of fragrance. There's a woody base with vanilla as well. And it's just such a nice combination of the brightness at the top, the coconut and warm florals in the middle, and that warm woody base that make this such a winner. Very sexy, decently lasting, not super duper long, but a good half day wear, definitely a date night's wear out of it. So I love this and I'm sad that that's all I'm getting. A little, it's done. All right. So rest in peace. We had a great time. Thank you for your service. I also want to highlight a fragrance that I really don't hear anyone talking about and I just don't understand. This for me is like hypnotic poison on steroids, as I've described it. It's Tiziana Terenzi Lince. And this is such a lovely, like for me, heavenly almondy fragrance with, again, that sort of thick, dense powderiness. It also has this nice brightness to it. I wore this to bed one night. Very comforting, kind of sexy too. Creamy, almond, powdery is how I would describe this. If that appeals to you, if you miss hypnotic poison and want it on some kind of steroids, give this a try. Sample it first because I described it like that before and someone in the audience said it didn't smell like hypnotic poison to them at all. So I just love this. It's warm, but at the same time has like this coolness about it. Creamy, almondy, powdery. Boom. I wore this next one because of the coconut note in it, but it has a lot of gourmand touches to it. It's from Omnia Profumi. It's called Madeira. It's got this nice creamy coconut combined with a really subtle caramel accord, which adds this kind of like gourmandy, maybe candy-like texture to it. But it's also balanced by florals and this nice easygoing musk. This is a fragrance that the same thing happens to me with Bianco Latte. If you spray it heavy, it's going to kind of like choke you out. There's something in the fragrance that gives you dry throat for a little bit. And then it settles down into a nice, creamy, delightful, easygoing, floral gourmand fragrance, I would describe it. The coconut isn't super pronounced. In fact, it's almost like a shaved coconut, but it also has some creamy aspects. I will say probably that some people will find this to be a little bit plasticky. So I would say this is the type of fragrance. See if it works with your skin chemistry first. Get a sample. I think there are samples of this on Scent Split. I think you can also get samples on Lucky Scent and lots of other places. And so anyway, I enjoyed this as a semi sort of floral gourmandy fragrance the day that I wore it. And then, we all know and either love or don't enjoy 100 Silent Ways from Nichane. I love that they tell you right on the cover here, the sticker, what you're supposed to experience. Tuberose, peach, jasmine, vanilla, sandalwood, vetiver. I will say this is a fragrance when I first tried it that I had kind of a hard time smelling it. And now it's stronger. So I don't know if it's like, the vanilla deepens in fragrances, but I definitely get the vanilla and the sandalwood in the base. The sandalwood is very soft and creamy. It doesn't smell heavily woody like some sandalwoods do. And I will say the peachy aspects or whatever that is only really for me in the beginning. Then it becomes this soft, powdery, creamy, white floral. with a sort of very, very soft woody base to it. I love this. I think this is another sort of delicate, demure, mindful experience to some extent. It's beautiful. It's so soft and it's so feminine and it's so round. It's like there's nothing prickly in this fragrance at all. Really beautiful, 100 Silent Waves. And last but not least is one that I would definitely say sample first. Is from a very popular house, but for me, it is one of their more matronly, mature scents. And I like it for that, but some folks would probably think this is maybe a little bit too old-fashioned or mature for them. And this is Safenade. The color of the fragrance in here gives you a sense of what this smells like. It is very like a warm, deep fragrance. The base of this, I'm going to start with that, is amber and sandalwood and vanilla. So when you think about those combining, it's almost like this sweet, slightly woody, very deep, cozy hug in a bottle fragrance. The other primary notes in here for me are orange blossom, which can be a very cloying floral fragrance, floral note for people. It's sweet and it's thick and it's maybe pungent for some folks. There's pear in the fragrance that I think lends some brightness. I believe there's other citrus notes as well, and maybe some other florals, but primarily orange blossom sitting on top of this very, very warm, cozy, enveloping base of that amber and vanilla and woodiness. And I think this is so lovely, so mature, very elegant fragrance, very stately, but perhaps for ladies or gentlemen of certain years, it'd be better for them than for the younger crowd that maybe would think this is a little overpowering or old-fashioned for them. I happen to think that it is beautiful and would encourage you to check this out, get a sample or decant and see what you think. So that wraps up my ridiculously long August fragrance awards. Let me know what you think of these. Drop in the comments what your favorite fragrance of August was. If you've been here this long, drop a pumpkin in the comments because fall is coming up. The day after today officially starts fall for me. I don't go by the autumn equinox. I go by September 1st. Actually, I go by when the kids go back to school, which was last week. And so for me, it is fall in my mind. But drop me a pumpkin in the comments if you're still here. I appreciate you. Thank you. See you in the next episode. Take care.